So there's some chairs up here at the front. All right, I'm going to announce that this meeting of the Seguin Independent School District has been duly called and the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043 of the Texas Government Code. Mr. Jenkins is going to lead us in the pledges tonight.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
I'll give everybody a moment of silence. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone. We have a full house this evening. I'm really happy to see you, and you're welcome to come back next month. Everyone. All right, we'll turn it over to Dr. Gutierrez for the superintendent now.
Good evening, board members and Seguin ISD community. Great things continue to happen in Seguin ISD, and I'd like to share a few examples as well as some upcoming event information. On Friday, it was an honor to provide welcoming remarks to the HOSA Area 1 Spring Leadership Conference hosted by Seguin High School. At the two-day event, students had the opportunity to network with others and compete in more than 40 healthcare-related leadership events. Area healthcare professionals, teachers, and other community members all pitched in to help make this event a success. Similarly, the Seguin High School Mariachi program hosted the Texas Mariachi Educators Association State Contest at the high school on February the 7th and 8th. 40 schools from across the state competed with approximately 2,000 guests overall. The high school also hosted the Crowd Pleasers Dance Competition for approximately 40 schools and 2,000 spectators on February the 14th and 15th at Seguin High School. These are examples of how Seguin High School related events help fill our hotel rooms, local restaurants, and overall positively impact the local community. The Seguin High School Matador Chamber Choir recently had the opportunity to sing O Fortuna from Carmina Burana during a Sunday afternoon concert at the Tobin Center for the Performing Arts in San Antonio. The performance was made possible thanks to an invitation from the San Antonio Chamber Choir in collaboration with the Youth Orchestras of San Antonio. Congratulations to our Chamber Choir students and Mr. Leo Garcia, Director of Seguin ISD Choirs. The success of our career and technical education program would not be possible without the tremendous support from our area businesses, manufacturers, and industry. In fact, on Wednesday, February 19th, more than 22 local businesses opened their doors to students for the second annual Seguin Job Shadow Days. Students were able to witness dozens of careers available and learn about the job skills necessary to succeed in our local workforce. Special thanks to the Seguin Economic Development Corporation and the Seguin Area Chamber of Commerce for again hosting Seguin Job Shadow Days. And thank you to all the businesses that participated to support our CTE students and staff. The Seguin ISD Rezoning Committee has drafted 2 proposed enrollment boundary maps. The community is invited to review the maps and provide feedback online at www.seguinisd.net through March the 1st. Additionally, the maps will be available for community comment here at admin on Wednesday, February 26th from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then again at 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Our Matador Special Services Department is again partnering with the San Antonio Food Bank on Friday, February the 28th for a food distribution event here at the admin offices. Students in the Matador Transition Program will distribute food at approximately 10:30 a.m. on a first-come, first-served basis. Thank you all for your continued support, and go Matadors.
that, I have thought thinking about how we have so many fabulous things going on in the school district. We really do, so we're all blessed. I need to be a part of it. Now each of the trustees are going to give a short report on what they've been taking part in. I want to say I went to the East, which is fabulous. I'm back on February 25th, and I know they have one act play coming up, so I want to wish them good luck. I've attended both the Lady Nats and Magical basketball games, and thoroughly enjoyed watching both of those sets of students. I attended a band concert on February 11th, and I want to congratulate all the students who did really well in UIL and moving on in the competition. I was finally able to attend one of the 10 Saturdays over at Barnes, and really enjoyed watching both elementary and middle school students practice their science and math skills. And I happened upon the Green Watcher dance competition, and I was really overwhelmed by that. I had no idea how big it was. We had so many staff members working it, and custodians, and so many volunteers, student volunteers. It was really quite overwhelming. We should be very proud that we have facilities to be able to host things like that. I stopped in on the link training for our ball teachers at the Outdoor Learning Center on the 17th. I attended the check-in at Seguin High School on the 20th, as well as Data Dialogue over at AJB on the 20th. I stopped by the Community Learning Exchange, which took place on Friday all day and most of Saturday, quite frankly. Started out on Friday at the Seguin Library and ended up here at the central office. And I really do want to give a shout out to all of the administrators and teachers and parents. It really was a wonderful experience, really enlightening. There's a lot of hope in that room when I stopped by at lunch on Saturday. And there's a lot of very positive energy. I think we got some good things happening here. And I did want to remind everybody that tomorrow's the Seguin Education Foundation fundraiser. We're having a Back Tuesday celebration. So come hungry, and it's over at the Coliseum. If you want to buy a ticket, I'm sure there's still some available this Sunday.
Thank you. I too attended the SHS production of Beauty and the Beast. All of our special call meetings that we've had, I think those of us will say the same thing. You forgot that, but I know you were here. Also had the opportunity to tour on February 1st and STEM Saturday over at Barnesville School. Was blown away, and even the students were so engaged in just loving everything and loving everything. So kudos to those who were involved in STEM Saturday. Same day, February 1st, I also attended a Destination Imagination appraiser training at Barnesville School for the upcoming on Saturday, regional central region tournament for Destination Imagination. I believe we have 5 teams, is that correct? 5 or 6 teams from Seguin, so I'm looking forward to that. Attended the 100 Days of School Celebration Parade at Tennessee Elementary. Also, the 100 Days of School Celebration Parade at Warner Elementary. Was able to attend a boys basketball game and a girls basketball game, and attended the AJP choir concert at the SHS PAC. And I really have to give it to Mr. Parrott and crew because it was amazing. And you can imagine, I don't know, 60 boys in a choir in one room, so I give it up to him because they listened and it was just amazing. So if you have an opportunity to hear them, go and hear them. Just like the mariachi, just like any fine arts presentation, if you can go because you'll be blown away. Also attended the SHS band midwinter concert and a check-in and walkthrough at Kingsbury Street. Thank you, Ms. Kristen.
I also attended the fabulous production of Beauty and the Beast, the 100th Day of School Celebration at Winers, the Rising Stars tournament here at the central office. And then congratulations to the Barnes and Breezy students that competed in UIL this past Saturday, the Tournament of Champions for the A+ acting. Yeah, this Saturday, and the winner today coming up, and then Barnes has their
Eagle.
I attended several meetings and special meetings. I attended the annual Citizen for the Year Award at the Silver Center. And I met with the architects and staff to discuss the ADP floor plan. And attended a zoning meeting and lunch and learn
know we've all been busy, so we do forget. This morning, but you had a good time, right? Okay, so I've been to the 7th grade Florence basketball games. I attended the ROTC military ball, the National Honor Society induction ceremony at high school. I was thoroughly entertained at the Lawn 100 Day parade by all those little babies that walked down the hall. Attended a baseball game at Delta. I also was at the Lunch and Learn series on accountability. Was at another baseball game in San Antonio, Brennan. And then I had the pleasure of attending the middle school pre-UIL band concert. And we'll also be at VI with the rest of the group. Together.
And so last meeting I attended the Lake Robotics Tournament and also STEM Saturday at Barnes. The mariachi competition was held here at the PAC Center. Several board meetings and special meetings. Also the Seguin Gazette Community Service Award was awarded to Mr. Jack Lee. And this Thursday, 2/20, until Saturday, I think at Mazda, the Mexican American Student Board Association conference in San Antonio. We had the tour of the best practices at several San Antonio schools, Edgewood School District, Southside School District, and Southwest High School. The 20th, I attended the Region 20 CASB grassroots, where we identified the priority for legislative issues for the next legislative session that's coming up. And I volunteered to be one of the 8 to represent Region 20.
Thanks for volunteering for that, I appreciate it. So, we've been busy, and it's only going to get worse. All right, so moving on in the agenda to our campus recognition presentation.
It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's featured campus, Seguin High School. Principal Dr. Esquivel and his team will highlight the merits of the FLEX program. Seguin High School is in year 2 of implementing a FLEX period for all students to engage in social and emotional learning, academic enrichment, and intervention.
Madam President, Dr. Gutierrez, Board of Trustees, community members, we are really excited to be here tonight to present our Matador Flex program, which happens every day at Seguin High School, and how it works. A lot of people are confused of how this works, but we're going to clear up, hopefully, a lot of the confusion today with our Matador Flex program. What we want to do first, we want to show you a really quick video, and then we're going to present some of the people that have been integral in this Matador Flex program at Seguin High School. So, we'll start with that. There's a really quick overview of the program, but what I do want to talk about on my part this evening is how did this all start? We didn't just get up in the morning one day and say, hey, let's do Flex. Believe it or not, there's a lot of planning involved. So 3 years ago, I was very frustrated because we would make these tutorials for our kids after school or in the morning, and the kids wouldn't show up. And these are kids that needed the tutorials. They needed to show up to these intervention or even enrichment programs. So they weren't showing up. We were very frustrated. We didn't really know why to address this, But we kept doing Saturday school. 4 kids would show up, sometimes more. After school, I mean, you could count them in one hand. We might have 5 kids, and that was it. Everybody would go home and not really worry about their intervention. So we looked at some things, and then finally, Dr. Gutierrez actually sent this to a solution tree training one year. I think it was like 3 years ago. There was a school there at Lee Stevens High School from Chicago. They were presenting on exactly what this was about. Their whole philosophy was, get the kids while they're in school. Don't get them after school on Saturday or in the morning. When they're in school, build something in there to help the kids. And that's exactly where that was born. So when we first looked at this, we said, okay, what do? 5 days is certainly too long. Let's do like a 3-day program, see how it works. Maybe we'll do it 1 week, maybe we won't. But as we started this, it was just a trial run. Ms. Dillon kind of just come on board, and we tried doing essays, just a lot of different things. Some kids caught onto it. Some kids just treated it as the old advisory period. I'm not going to do anything. And some teachers were the same. You know, I'm not going to try this. We had a lot of different things set up for them. So we started there. And we saw in the spring, when we came to the spring, we saw data. And we saw data looking at our eyes and saying, what do we do? A lot of these kids aren't being successful. So we came up with something called All Hands on Deck. We rolled out carts, and they'll talk a little bit about how this works. And everybody on the campus, all of a sudden, from 10:18 to 10:49, was on a device doing tutorials. And that's how we were able to raise our scores, in my opinion, significantly, because everybody was in on this. So that was critical last year. Well, this summer, our teachers, some of them are here, said, we need more than that. Yes, we have the tutorials. The kids are finally on them. We're participating. What about the other stuff? The kids need social and emotional learning. So we said, well, heck, let's build something for them too. They said, what about a 5-day period? I said, well, let's do it. You know, you guys, you're the teachers. You're going to have to tell this to everybody. So we started that, and it's really been an incredible transformation. How we started with a lot of different programs that they'll talk about and where we're at today. I am really proud of what we've done with our students to mobilize 2,000 students. And yes, not all of them are on board, but to mobilize those kids for those 30, 35 minutes to do something that's helping them is pretty amazing. And that's what they're going to talk about, but this has definitely been the best year, in my opinion, that we've actually transformed Matter Reflects for what it really was intended to be, to help all students and create opportunities for them. So I do have our academic dean to talk a little bit about how the tutorials work.
Good evening, how are y'all? I hate putting my back to y'all, how are you? So I'm going to talk to you guys about the 3 days in the middle. So we do have a 5-day flex period. It is from 10:18 to 10:49. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, first semester, students had Flex Academy, and during that time, our teachers actually elected to give students alternate assignments. So for example, if Dr. Gutierrez was in my class and he was missing a grade, I could say, you need to get on algebra and take care of that missing grade that was posted today for this week. And he had an opportunity to do that in class in real time. So that helped with our failure rate tremendously. It is down greatly compared to last semester, the first semester last year and first semester this year. Now, second semester, we do a big push towards STAR. So right now, our students are on Apex. Every student is on there, and I look today. As of today, we have 1,200 students that have access to tutorial, which is good because we don't want the seniors to be taking tutorials unless it's for TSI, which would be college readiness. But all of the students have been very successful. They have support. I'm doing incentives. Today they get Dean's passes if every student that's in their Apex tutorials accesses it. So we're on the right track. Now Ms. Block is going to discuss with you guys what we're doing for social emotion.
Good evening. As we know, education now is more than just academics, and we do really have to focus on the social and emotional learning. And so this summer, the teachers are going to tell you a little bit more about that. And last year, they met as a committee to really determine what changes needed to happen during this flex time, focusing on student social and emotional learning. And so we brought in a program this year that's new, Panorama, and that's done on campus on Mondays and Fridays. But you don't want to hear from me. I'm going to let you hear from the two experts. We have Ms. Miles and also Ms. Schneebly from the high school campus, and they are part of our committee, so I want them to tell you about that. Great. I am Samantha Miles, and I wanted to talk to you about a Panorama, which is the program that we're using to push out our surveys to our students. because the Flex focus group met together and we discussed the need for social emotional learning on our campus, that academics are important, but we also need to incorporate that piece as well. So we looked at several different programs and ultimately decided on Panorama for their surveys with national benchmarks, so we could be collecting data on the efficacy of Flex. We work with them as well because they have a very responsive customer service, and we have an assigned representative that anytime we have a question, Ms. Valentine and I can reach out and we get a response very quickly. They also include a playbook that has various lessons based on the 8 different, I'm losing the words right there, topics. And Ms. Shibley will talk about that in just a moment. And I also wanted to address that I was present for the social emotional learning community exchange, and that was a very positive experience. It was nice to hear from other teachers that were not part of the Flex Focus Group to say that this is a really great program, it's really effective, and we're going to continue to work on getting more teacher buy-in and helping our students even more.
I'm Andrea Schnibley, and I'm going to tell you about how we choose these topics. We narrowed it down to 8 different topics from the Panorama program, and they are growth mindset, social awareness, self-management, self-efficacy, grit, sense of belonging, teacher-student relationships, and climate. We looked at the different topics. I think there were about 30 that Panorama offers, and we decided that these were the areas that our students needed the most improvement on. And so at the beginning of the year, we surveyed the students to get a diagnostic level of where they're at, and then we've been teaching them lessons throughout the year that tie in with the Panorama program. There is a group of, I think there's about 8 of us that actually create these lessons. We take something from Panorama, we modify it a little bit to fit the needs of our students, and then we disperse it via Google Classroom and email every week, a couple of days before it's due, before we're going to do the program or that lesson that day. And each teacher is responsible for creating about 6 lessons per semester, so it's a very manageable workload. And just as a side note, I teach psychology as well, and I've seen students come in and they're like, oh yes, we talked about this in the other class, and this was really a good experience. So I've been able to see some of those real life learns being applied to their lives.
So just to sum it up, Flex is really all about social and emotional learning, enrichment, intervention, but more importantly, as we call it, it's winning time for our kids. You know, you'd be surprised, so 30 minutes times 5 will add up. And how these students can access those tutorials or the social and emotional learning lessons. So we're very happy about this program. I think the biggest accomplishment that we all think we've done here is it's become a culture, a part of the culture of our school. So, and that's what we wanted. That's when they know, okay, the bell rings, there's a little ding, and everybody knows, all right, it's time to shut it off, it's Flex time. So students start taking out their devices, reading, study groups, whatever needs to happen. So we actually monitor that pretty well. We go into classrooms and we check, because we have to inspect what we expect, right? So we check, make sure that it's rolling, and then we look at the reports that come in on Monday. So really proud of this, guys. Amazing program. I would offer this blueprint to any high school because it works. So that's all we have tonight. If there's any questions, just let us know.
I just want to say, great job. To be able to accomplish that at a campus that serves 2,000 kids is certainly huge. It has been a work in progress, but we're already seeing the results when you're looking at the performance of retesters back in the fall, when you're looking at failure rates in comparison to last year, when you're looking at what data indicators are already showing, it's certainly going to pay off. I know this has been a tremendous effort on everyone's part because, as you said, all hands on deck. So kudos to the high school staff for making this happen for 2,000 students.
Thank you very much.
We're going to make a slight change in the agenda, and we're going to go to item 4B, which is the Seguin Works 18 Plus Transition Program. And so we'll bring up Mrs. David. behind the pillow.
Madam President, Dr. Gutierrez, Board, I'm so proud to be able to introduce you to the staff and the students of the Seguin Works 18 Plus program. This program provides a means to help students transition from the world of school to the world of adult living. It's a capstone on the educational career for all of our students, and it's the true embodiment and culmination of what we want for everybody. It is exceptional students to exceptional citizens embodied here. So we are very lucky to be able to provide this program to our students. Not a lot of districts have a capstone program like this, the 18 Plus. In fact, we're so proud of our program. We partnered with Marion and the Bear to bring this opportunity to all the students in the area. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to our teacher, Terry Hartman. She's here, and her students. And then we have two job coaches that serve the students in this program, Gracie Soto and Karen Schultz. And they're going to tell you all about it. Hi. How are y'all? Thank you for having us.
We are extremely proud of what these young adults are doing right now. We'll just go ahead and get started because there's a lot on here. Okay, I've got a lot to brag about here, so let's me get together. So what are we? Seguin Works is a transition program, and it's designed to support the 18 to 22-year-old young adults with disabilities, providing transitional services that promote movement from school towards post-secondary activities. And they, of course, the most important, are based on the young adult's personal preference and their interest. Oh, that's me. So we are tri-district, as Halsey said, and it is, of course, with Seguin ISD, Navarro, and Marion, which has created a much broader social circle, bringing a lot of these young adults together. So what's our motto? So when I first was asked about coming to transition, I asked what the name of it was going to be, and they told me Seguin Works, and automatically my gears started turning. And so our motto is, our gears keep turning towards independence. And how cool is it that Seguin is an industrial area too? So when we ask these young adults questions about their future, what's your future going to look like? And we work off of what's called post-secondary goals. And we want to know, are you wanting to get a job? Do you want to pursue your education? Where would you like to live? And of course I want them to, while they're in school, they are eligible, they are entitled to services, but what are you eligible for outside in the community once you exit the public school system? So the services that are provided are training in self-advocacy with higher education and a focus in 4 domain areas. We work in these 4 specific domain areas of independent living, vocational skills, functional academics, and community participation. So in order to find this out, we have to make these determinations, and in the beginning we assess, and then we come back after the first semester and we assess again, because their changes may have done some things that they have decided, well, we want to see where they're at that particular moment, coming back with the second semester. What are their needs, their strengths? One of the important things is the desire to participate, what their future visions are, and really what are their learning styles. How are we going to work on teaching these specific tasks and skills? So which path are they going to take? What's going to lead them towards their goals? We talk about the steps that it takes to get there, but ultimately the choice is theirs, what they're going to work towards. So we're going to take a look at, put a few of these pictures together and on what's happening in these domain areas. We are very, very blessed to have been offered 3 rooms over. We're now located within Sater, and we do a lot of simulation, lots and lots of simulation. We are very, very excited to be working with HEB and with Walgreens and several different entities within the Seguin city limits. Our HEB simulation takes place, and a lot of times it's really cool because some of the things that happen out there, we bring it back, we simulate it. How would you work on these situations? We do have 2 wonderful job coaches. I know that Ms. Dean had already talked about those. Ms. Gracie Soto and Ms. Karen Schultz are out there on the job sites with these young adults. And they're, like I said, Walgreens, and we do Walgreens simulation. We do a lot of off prep. We simulate clerical activities. We bring in some in-house jobs. We package some items over here that went to a program that was going to be taking place at Ball. So a lot of assembly, a lot of good hands-on skills. And then these are many of the merchants that we work with right here in community, and you can see just the pictures kind of speak for themselves. Many of our young adults are out there learning these skills, from customer service skills to working with Habitat and giving back to the community, to stocking shelves and bagging groceries and cooking. So that's just a few of those pictures. The next slide is on our independent living. Anything from housekeeping to cooking, to kitchen safety, comparison shopping, anything. Many of these young adults have the potential to go live on their own, and when we work on those post-secondary goals, even if you're not going to live on your own, you're still a roommate, and you need to learn these specific skills. So we've got a bunch of, even this middle one, we have this beautiful tree, Sager, and we've been blessed to be in those rooms right outside that tree. But you can see that middle one, they have to get out there and clean all those lovely leaves that fall. So, which is another great skill. Functional academic-wise, we're working on money management, counting back change, receiving change for a purchase, seeing if we have enough money to make purchases, from preparing for our food banks to banking skills, and just multiple measurements going on up in that corner. A lot of their IEP skills are definitely being worked on because, of course, that's what we do. So it's very, very important that we give back to our community. It's very important that we understand why we give back to our community. And you can look at these young adults out doing their thing. We've worked in animal services. We have a adopt-a-spot at the local park at Starkey Park where we pick up trash. Our area is, we got the one where all the little kids drop everything, so it's perfect. And so when we run out of stuff there, I tell them start picking up sticks. So there's quite a bit of volunteer work to be done out there. And one that's near and dear to my heart is going to this Nesbitt Recovery Center. And I tell them, talk to them, they've got some beautiful stories, and you know, sometimes some of them, some of the ones that they've seen for a long period of time, and we're going to make it a monthly venture. This was a Christmas celebration that we did with them, and made bells and took them to them and sang and did some stuff with them. But we'll be going once a month to work with them. So we do have some exciting news. And on the next slide, Bill, that's what's going to go in that upper corner. You'll see the little sound bar. It's going to move. Yeah, it's not shifting for me. Okay, we have team members that have become gainfully employed, and we are extremely happy for them. They've gotten out there, filled out their applications, we do a lot of mock interviewing, and this is just for fun. Because one of the things we're going to ask them, why do you work? To get money. That's exactly why we work. So I'd like to do a big thank you to the following establishments. You can kind of see where we've got two at Whataburger, one at Little Caesars, and they're doing very, very diverse jobs there from, without going into exactly every job that they do, but many of them have just started, and so one of them is one I had from last year. If you'll go to the next slide, please. That's me. Right here are the team members that persistence and hard work pays off. So we just took a few pictures, some of them holding their checks and some of them actually in their uniforms, and they're just a great, great group of young adults, and there is so much potential for many of these others are ready to be in that same position. So we have many ventures that are happening at Seguin Works, our present and our future. Right now, presently, we hold an annual fundraiser. And you can see at the very top slides that there's so many different IEPs and their goals and objectives that are being worked on, from measurement to preparing everything that we do for this fundraiser. is done by hand, from the labels to packaging to, we did snowmen and angels last year. We did sugar scrubs and cookies in a jar, and all of that is used to go into our activity fund to utilize for doing things within our community or going back into paying for food lab material. And it's just a great, great experience for these young adults. So we have a joint project with Texas Workforce Solutions VR programming, and it's bringing the vocational transition training together. I'm very excited. I've been wanting these, a few of them to go and attend the CTTC, which is the Central Technology Center in New Braunfels, to do a college prep course. And I brought it up with our rep through the Texas Workforce Commission, and she is going to make it now a part of this joint venture and take 6 of our students in there in their theory, and their motto is you go in with a idea and you come out with a plan. So I'm really excited for about 6 of them will be going in early March to attend this college prep course. So we have our mobile food pantry, the Courageous Hands, and I'm going to kind of stick right there in the center. I'm extremely proud of we have some really talented young adults that do some beautiful drawing. And the Courageous Hands came up because it takes a lot of courage to go through the line and say that, you know, they want to go and receive the food, but it also takes a lot of courage for these young adults that have maybe never done customer service work or you know, work on the functional signs and all that it takes. If you've never been to one, it's a pretty fast-paced process, but it's a beautiful process to see. And we do a lot of packaging, and then we load the stuff in their cars, and this is a joint venture between the Seguin Work Transition, Seguin ISD, the San Antonio Food Bank, and of course, we could not do any of this. And we give special thanks to all of our Matador family and the many, many volunteers in the community that come and be a part of this. So what's the future? We're very excited to announce Seguin Works Transition Program's newest entity and our entrepreneurship opportunity. It is through the support and belief and the dedication of our special ed director that Ms. Halsey Dean has made this dream become a reality. The Seguin Works Print Shop. We are going to be able to put out a lot of printing needs, and this is just the walls are bare, but come back in about a week or a half, you're going to see all the printing material. It just got taken out of the boxes and put up Friday. So this is just the barest of bare, but we are so excited to see that and are looking forward to putting forth a lot of work within the community. We'll be able to I have a few of the students or the team members here that are doing prototypes for our print shop logos to come up with a logo for our Seguin Works print shop. And then we will provide multiple services. Some of these on the bottom, we've got, I believe, 9 elementary schools, thematic bulletin boards. We special ed teachers make what we call a lot of file folder jobs, and they become very tedious. It's going to be a beautiful thing to be able to produce those and throughout the district, and then of course all these other great printing needs. And of course the gears keep turning, so what's going to be next for Seguin Works? The negotiations are in the process right now to create an in-house Courageous Hand food pantry. Once a week, I'd love to have a potato bar here at Central Office. We used to do the mobile cafe, and that's when we were across the street at the high school. We could push the mobile cart over here, but we'd love to look at that process, and we would like to be able to partner up with local business and work a community garden. So our past versus our future. Our past I began when I came here to Seguin Works with 4 team members. And they taught me the flavor of Seguin, and we're just a wonderful group of young adults. Today, under this beautiful tree, we have 20 team members. Our future projection for the 2021 are sitting at 25 right now. So we are excited, very, very excited about what the future holds for Seguin Works, and could not have done it without the support of many, many people in this room. But I would like to, most important, we are just kind of a catalyst in there for the support. But we couldn't do it. I have several of them that wanted to show up today. Could y'all, the team members, stand up? There is time. We had a couple that wanted to state what the program has done for them thus far, if that would be okay. Which one of you wanted to speak? Okay, y'all can come on up.
Hello, my name is Ethan Hernandez. I came from Marion. At the beginning of the program, I didn't know what to expect. But when I found out we volunteer and do all this, I was actually pretty proud to actually go out there and try to make more of myself, to open right up and explore about the program. And I'm very proud to be here and teach me a lot of stuff.
Hello, my name is Jonathan. I've been in the program for 2 years now. And the program helped me a lot this coming year. I'm looking forward to it next year. I've grown in this program a lot. I met Ms. Tip. At first I didn't want to join the program. but then as soon as I entered the program, I met a whole lot more people. And I met Miss Terry and Miss Gracie in the program. Even though Miss Terry was a hard time.
Just really proud at how much this program has grown in the last 3 years. Kudos to the staff who make this happen every day for these wonderful young adults and the special education department. This is a tremendous program for our students, certainly preparing exceptional students to exceptional citizens.
And thanks also to all the businesses that are working with these students. So I think we all saw on the slide businesses that are helping. So let's give them our All right. Okay, going back to our agenda, we have some student and staff recognition. And Mr. Hoffman, I think I'll turn it over to you for the Seguin High School competition.
Madam President, Dr. Gutierrez, and trustees, tonight we have 2 groups we'd like to recognize. And I do believe that Dr. Gutierrez has the honors this evening, so I will turn it over to him.
Welcome. The Seguin High School competition cheer squad performed in the annual UIL State Spirit Competition in Fort Worth on January the 18th. The young ladies again finished in the top 5, bringing home 4th place for the 2nd year. At this time, I'd like to ask Suzanne Zink, Seguin High School cheer sponsor, to tell us a little bit about the state competition that was held last month.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Zink. This is my assistant. She's amazing, Taylor Winters. We're going to do this together tonight. These girls are absolutely amazing. Y'all are fine. They did awesome at the competition. They placed 4th out of 64 teams, 66 teams. They represented Seguin to their best ability, and we graciously thank you for sending in your videos. Yes, keep coming. To your videos. We got to watch them. Y'all can keep coming in. There's a lot of there's 40. Okay. Yes. It really makes a huge difference when we get support from the community, especially the board members. You really have no idea the impact it makes when we watch those videos the night before we compete. It really pumps everybody up, and we really appreciate all of that. Yes, thank you so much. So we're going to introduce the ladies here for the 4th place 2019-20 team. Rachel Beltran, Erica Bennett, Macy Berryhill, Allie Burns, Kaden Carter, Mallory Chisholm, Jenny Cisneros, Vanessa Costilla, Audrey Davila, Sydney Doss, Kaylin Earl, Aiden Flores, Geneva Gonzalez, Aubrey Gonzalez, Taraya Guardiola, Ava Hayasoso Gonzalez, Camden Holt, Ivy Keller, Kinsey Cluth, Lauren Colby,
Araceli Leal, Emma Lopez, Megan Mahaffey, Amanda Munoz, Courtney Owens, Shelby Pasante, Devin Patterson, Lauren Perez, Eleanor Pouchot, Vanessa San Miguel, Carrie Sanchez, Haley Spicer, Haley Thornton, Alyssa Torres, Ava Twittero, Rachel Uretha, Hannah Vasquez, Paige Wilkie, and Kylie Yeomans.
Thank you again so much for your support. We graciously appreciate you. Thank you. You don't understand how much it means to us. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, fourth in the state.
Yes, thank you. Oh, for sure. Don't mix the levels. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and right down. 2. Thank you.
Okay, on to the next recognition. Seguin ISD celebrated National School Counseling Week on February 3rd through the 7th. This year's theme is School Counselors Helping Build Better Humans. During Counselors Week, we help focus attention on the unique contributions our school counselors make each and every day in our schools. And tonight, we would like to recognize Seguin ISD counselors for their tireless service and dedication to the students of Seguin ISD. At this time, I'd like to recognize our counselors individually and present them with a certificate. Michelle Sines. Lisa Pate. Ross Terry. Audria Herrera. Carly Tucker. Maribel Wongley, Jeannie Rodriguez, Pointa Perez Vasquez, Kimberly Johnson, Natalie McFadden, Kelly Averett, Deandra Vega, Melissa Haas, Natalie Austin, Connie Donsbach, Lilia Berta, Abby Mendez, Gerard Rodriguez, and Rudy Herrera.
Come this way, like this, and we'll get a straight line in front of. Let's get in front of this, that way.
Oh, friend. Oh.
You all ready?
Tonight, it is a special privilege to recognize an individual who has made a tremendous impact on students and colleagues. This employee creates exceptional and accurate records which result in audits that pass with flying colors. She is extremely conscientious of her work and will do whatever it takes to ensure that her records are correct. That is no easy task as she manually enters information on up to 500 students every year. On top of her work ethic, this month's honoree is sweet, generous, and is always willing to help. She serves as a mentor to her peers across the district. This special employee has been with the district for 27 years and has worked at Erskine, Vogel, Sager, and currently works at Ball Early Childhood Center. Please help me congratulate the February 2020 Superintendent Award winner, Ms. Mary Gonzalez of Ball Early Childhood.
Nancy, they're out of tissues on this end. All right, moving on in our agenda, next is the audience with the board, and we designated time for audience participation at the beginning of each meeting, those who desire to make comments. In accordance with board policy DED local, we did not have anyone sign up this evening. So we're going to go on to section 4, which are our reports and information items. We're going to start off with our campus instructional initiatives. And
Board President Thomas Jimenez, members of the board, Dr. Gutierrez, it's not on. Now it is. I'm very excited to basically be able to recognize pretty much on a monthly basis some of the good work that our campuses are doing. Tonight we get to honor the work that's happening over at Potlawn Elementary and at Rodriguez Elementary, and I'm just not going to waste any time. I'm going to bring up Ms. Linda Guzman, the wonderful principal at Potlawn. I'm going to let her introduce her folks, and then we'll get into the presentation.
Well, good evening, Madam President, Dr. Gutierrez, board members. I am happy to be here with my leadership team to present to you our professional learning communities and what an impact it has made in our school. I have with me this evening is Ms. Gonzalez. She is my kinder through second grade instructional coach. Ms. Blanco, she is my third through fifth grade instructional coach. And Ms. McKinney, my assistant principal. Our hope is that you see exactly what we do at Potlawn to move our students further. Correct. So I know you've heard this, and I'm sorry this may seem redundant, but we are convinced, especially working in an elementary school, that redundancy can be a powerful tool. So, to start off, here is a short definition of our PLC. As you can see, it's an ongoing, continuous, never-ending process of conducting schooling that has a profound impact on the structure and culture of our school. To break it down a little bit further, we like to focus on learning, not just teaching. At Potlawn, we follow the PLC cycle and components. As you can see, we review the essentials, we create a well-written common formative assessment, we analyze the data from our common formative assessments and plan flexible mixed groups. We teach, we reteach, and extend lessons from team planning. And we daily quick checks or reassess.
Good evening. I wanted to dive a little bit further into the guiding questions of the PLC process because I think that often the questions can be very bland. But what we want our teachers to do is not just look at what the kids want to know, but actually state an objective. When we frame a lesson, we ask our teachers to open up what is it that we want them to know and to close with that. And that's been trying at times, but when you go into classrooms, you'll see objectives that are posted on the board that we want to reference to keep ourselves on track and also the kids. Then we ask ourselves, how are we going to know when they've learned it? What's our evidence? And this year we've really attacked the lesson plan template and we've asked our teachers to look at what is the goal. It's not necessarily the STAR assessment. It's not necessarily a test. But what is that one skill that you want them to understand in that lesson and at that period of time? And how are you going to know that they know it? The next question we look at is how will they respond when they haven't learned it? And this is a huge action plan that we put into place. We bring about interventions. We get our teachers to data dig with us. It's not a one-size-fits-all formula. So we look at pulling in team members who are mastering skills that maybe another teacher's not, and we collaborate on what's the best practices for every student learner. Our last question is how will we respond when they have learned it? We've got kids who do master skills, and instead of pushing them aside, it's what can we do now? Sometimes it's looking at a vertical alignment of a teak to see if a kid understands a second grade skill. What is that vertical skill in third grade that we can go ahead and push, something that we can extend? Maybe it's something project-based or a collaboration that they can do within. So we really try to hit those 4 questions when we're talking about a teak that maybe we want them to master at that point in time.
Good evening. But it really is a collaborative group effort, and in order to answer all of these questions, our teachers really have had to learn how to be vulnerable, because the learning is really in, you know, the failures or the mistakes or the, you know, hey, I didn't do this right. Do you have an idea to help me? Because that's really and truly what a PLC is about. It's that you have professionals around you that might have had something similar to you that you can learn from and grow from. And so really being open and then responsive to those things will really push the pendulum and has pushed the pendulum at Pot Lawn. And it hasn't always been easy. And those kind of conversations are tough, and really looking into your own self and saying, I failed today. How can the next day, how can I be better? And then looking to your colleague and saying, this is what happened, you know, and stuff. And sorry, super nervous.
We definitely wanted to talk about our campus as a PLC, and I think often PLCs are looked upon as planning meetings or just a meeting on a certain week. Mimi and I were lucky enough to come on board the year that Ms. Guzman did, and so we've had a good 4 years. And I think that our data is representative of a culture that shifted from what we were with low performing to now we're succeeding. And that has taken not just a meeting, but a second grade teacher who's willing to go to a fourth grade teacher and say, what is it that you're doing to get these kids to understand summary, because I'm not. And you can walk on our campus and see these teachers collaborate in the hallways, in the bathrooms, in the lunchroom, anywhere, and they're there for each other. And I think that Mimi and I definitely have to speak up right now to the fact that we're 2 coaches on a campus. And we're lucky enough to be the only campus who carries 2 instructional specialists. I did it last year. I was the campus instructional specialist by myself. Mimi did it the year before. And we can both attest to the fact that on a campus like ours, we need laser-focused instruction and collaboration focused in grade levels, not just all over the board. What happens is when testing starts to come along, we focus our shift, and we shift our focus to 3 through 5, and we leave K through 2 behind. And I'm going to tell you that I know that one of the board's goals is to have that 3rd grade group that's our kinder cohort right now to hit 100%. And I'm very happy to report that our kinder cohort is only 6 percentage points away from hitting 62%. And that doesn't come easy, but if one of us is only focused on the entire campus, I just don't think that we would have that. But being able to guide ourselves to K through 2 and give them that reading proficiency, look at inventories and figure it out in our lower levels, it's really going to be powerful for closing the gap on our 3rd grade students. And it will keep going if you don't stop it.
Our results orientation, did you go through that already? Oh, there you go. This is just another piece on the results orientation. We talk about gathering evidence, and this is not just about bringing in against our assessments or any type of test. We've got to look at inventories on our younger readers, and we call it little land for no joke. If we don't hit those kids in inventories and figure out if it's a phonetic problem, if it's a vocabulary problem or a comprehension problem, we know that kids by 3rd grade can't close that gap. And so we really have to look at that and figure out what's our intervention, what are we going to focus on this group with, and then where are we going to move these kids to the strongest person who's going to be able to target those students and close our gap in.
And it's not just with our intervention, it's our enrichment too. It's what are we doing for the kids that already did it? What are we doing to push their thinking? Because, you know, we want to grow all students, not just a certain selection. And I think that by having these PLCs, you're really able to pinpoint and target all students to ensure that all students are learning.
All right, so in conclusion, there's 5 main points that are positive impacts that have happened on our campus. Teachers really know the depth of their teams because they're working together and collaborating. It eliminates teaching in isolation. There's intentional planning for all levels of learners. It provides teachers with ongoing professional development, and there's collaboration on common formative assessments that's provided great data for grade level teams. So, it's a really good experience on campus.
Yes, and as you can see, I'm very proud of my leadership team. It is a full effort. It's not just one person. It's all of us coming together and working hard to get our students where they need to be.
And it's a journey. It has taken several years to get to this point, but I'm really proud of the progress you're making this year as far as your iStation data where students are growing, how close you are to hitting the goals this year with kindergarten. Another example is math, middle of the year benchmark, almost 90%. So what you're doing is having a significant impact, and this down the road with our secondary is going to make a difference in investing hard and heavy on the early literacy, which has been a focus of ours the last few years here, but y'all have just y'all gone above and beyond, and it's going to pay off in the coming years as those kids progress through the system.
Thank you, Scott.
That's
right.
Never give up.
I have a quick question. Yes. You have two instructional coaches. Is that the funding year? Did you use some funds for that?
We used our title funds for that. Yes, yes, ma'am. we did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Patlan. Now we're going to turn it over to Rodriguez. We're going to bring up interim principal, Miss Yolanda Grijalva, and her team.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Gutierrez, and distinguished members of the board. I am Yolanda Grijalva, interim principal at Rodriguez Elementary. I have with me Ms. Dunn, instructional coach at Rodriguez, and Ms. Michelle Castillo, assistant principal at Rodriguez Elementary. So this evening, we would like to present to you the guided reading initiative for the 2019-2020 school year at Rodriguez Elementary. So at the end of the school year last year, we noticed that our data reflected that half of our students were reading below grade level. And so to address this need, we began the guided reading initiative. It was a book study that we started with our staff. Every member of our staff received the guided reading book, The Next Step to Forward in Guided Reading by Jan Richardson, to start reading over the summer. And we had our first book study meeting before the school year even started, and then we started meeting once the school year began, either monthly or bi-monthly.
So the goal of the district was to have, by 2023, to have all students reading on grade level by the 3rd grade. So with that initiative and that goal, we wanted to take our guided reading and make sure that we could support that at Rodriguez. And so one of the things that we did at our very first meeting was we looked at every student's reading level, and we grouped them by classroom, by student, and then we did a percentage of how many students were reading below grade level in a classroom. And then we went to the grade level, and then we went to the school. And that's how we found out that our scores were accurate from the year before, and so we knew that we needed to start something significant. So we took this monthly meeting, and we took our students' reading levels, and we worked with teachers to group them into guided reading groups and small groups. And that was a big challenge for some of our teachers, but some of our teachers it wasn't. But it was very eye-opening to look at the numbers. And then in another meeting, we kind of talked about what your kids are going to be doing when you are in station, or when you're working in a guided reading group. What are your kids going to be doing? The rotations, and setting up stations that go back to Tier 1 instruction. So when you've taught whole group, you have Tier 1 instruction, and then you take stations and you put those into activities into the stations so that your students can practice what they've learned as a whole group while you're pulling those small groups and being very intentional about the skills that they're working with. And then we've also talked about the lesson planning and how to show what you're doing so that when one of us walks in the room, we know what you're doing, we can see, and it's evident. So the book, the Jan Richardson book that we're using, has some templates for them to use. That's very easy, and so it was a no-brainer to use those. We also designated time each day to have independent reading time so that the students could read on their instructional level and they could practice and build stamina so that when they did get to a test, they were more familiar and had that stamina to take the test and be able to read it on their own. We also used the new curriculum, the HMH, and they had leveled reader books And so we have, we took a room and we set it up, and the kids come, the teacher comes and gets the books, and they read them with the students, and they're very engaging and high interest. And so that was another thing to talk about the checkout process and how to make it easier for teachers so that they would come and get the books and share them with the students. And then we also gave each teacher a binder that they could keep all of the information in. So in that binder, it has the students' levels, it has their groups, it has the running records that they've used to find out what level they're reading at instructionally and independently. And so when we walk through, we can take a look at that binder, and those are some things that we can on the spot know where our kids are and what level they're at.
As we continue to grow our teachers in guided readings during our weekly walkthroughs, this is now a look for that we have. We have all their schedules, specifically when they're doing guided reading, and we walk in to observe their lessons. These pictures are some of our third grade teachers in the middle of their guided reading lessons. The middle picture is Miss Ramirez, and she is leading a guided reading lesson. As you can see, her students have their response journal, so not only are they reading, but they are also writing. Ms. Ramirez prioritizes her time each day to meet with a small group, and it's evident that she is doing that as her scores in the latest district assessment were at an 88%.
This is a little bit of data here, and if you look at the first two columns, the ones in red, this reflects from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year, the students that were reading below grade level for each grade. And so like, if, for example, if you look at second grade, 50% of the kids in second grade were reading at 50% of them, were below grade level, and by the middle of the year FMP assessments, only 23% of the kids were reading below grade level. So we can see here, just looking at this table, that we have some celebrations in second, fourth, and fifth grade in that regard, but we also need to see what's happening in the other grade levels as well. And when we have that data binder, we can go student by student and see specifically who is making progress and who is not, looking at the teacher's anecdotal notes and the lesson plans and the skills that they're targeting. And the students that are moving forward, it's also important to note most of them are moving on to be either on grade level or above grade level, as is reflected in that green column at the end.
And what is that?
So for the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year, we use FMP, which is what the district uses. But we also want to track per month. So for that, we've been using Rigby, which we're looking at purchasing something different for the monthly informal running records every month.
And this slide shows not percentage, but the actual number of students who have jumped reading levels. The first column is 1 to 2 levels. The second column is 3 to 4 levels. And the last column is 5 levels. I do want to note that when in the primary grades, you move levels much quicker. You go from a C to a D to an E to an F, whereas in the upper grades, you might be on an R for a few months before you get to an S, before you get to a T.
So with this table, it's also important to note that reading levels, even if you do you're trying to compare beginning of the year to middle of the year, it's always a moving target, right? Because whatever you were at the beginning of the year, you need to be at a higher level by the middle of the year. So we wanted to show that even though students are not necessarily on the level they need to be, as long as they continue to make progress, then that's something to note. And if we're not making progress, then we need to look at other options for RTF. All right, in our last slide, again, we're going to purchase more Funston Canal. Sometimes we were missing a little bit of the kit, so we're going to invest in that next year. And then again, order additional level readers because it's important to have a good variety of high-level interest books for the students to utilize during guided reading. We will also, of course, continue to track data. And then our plan is to focus on RTI at the end of the school year. During first grade is when they have to do their highest jump from reading from one level to where they need to be by the end of the school year. And if we don't catch them at the end of first grade, it's that gap just continues to get wider. So, and these last pictures show our checkout system. Thank you all.
I just want to commend the work that you're doing as Rodriguez moved across the board, self-contained this year. Providing this resource to your teachers is a good investment, because ultimately what we want to create in our elementary teachers are teachers who can be, every teacher should be a literacy teacher. So what y'all are doing is you're making this investment to create literacy teachers across the board, across grade levels. And that is a huge investment, and you're making progress, and I've been encouraged by what I've seen with some of those teams that have transitioned from self-contained, from departmentalized to self-contained, and that's a move that we have to make, especially with the changes that we've seen with the ELA standards, the accountability. It's even more important that elementary teachers are literacy teachers. Thank you all.
Thank you. That was the short.
Okay, moving on to item 4C, which is our strategic priority and initiative report, which is on I-Station Regs 8 at 8. And these are kind of two related studies.
Good evening again. Sorry, I had something on my booth. So as we go through the presentation, this is the second time that we bring iStation data before you. I just want to remind us about our strategic priorities. So there are three, what I like also to call big rocks, right? 3 priorities. The first one is improve student learning, improve instructional practice. That's what we've heard mostly from this evening about what are we going to do to get better at what we're asked to do, which is improve instruction across the board for all students. The second one is engage parents, industry, community partners to make sure that we have an enriched experience for our students and our staff. And then the last one is to create the conditions so that we can recruit and retain our best employees. So again, from that we developed our strategic priorities or initiatives for the superintendent and the board goals, and this is our first goal, which is around K-3 literacy, which is that we want 100% of our students reading on grade level by 3rd grade. So this year, that's our kinder cohort. We want them to be at a minimum 62% and then grow from there every year so that we get 100% by 3rd grade. This slide here, you're very familiar with it. It just tracks what's coming up next. So this month we're sharing with you iStation report. In March we will not have a district initiative report, but in April we will share 2 initiatives. And then we will go back to, in May, reading levels. And then in June, we'll talk about reading levels one more time. And then we'll close up the year with a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So we're gonna dig into our ISIP, or our iStations Indicator of Progress data. These are the same slides that I shared with you at the beginning of the year. So the first slide that you're gonna see here is September. If you remember that kindergarten tests later on in the year, so September we only had a handful of students. That is not a mistake. That is how it's supposed to happen. And again, so level 1, those are students who are about 3 or more grade levels behind. Level 2, they're at about 2 or 3 grade levels behind. And then the green, the further the darkest green, you're either on level or you're above grade level. And so we want to see all that red and that yellow move into the green. So I'm not going to go slide by slide, because really what I want to take you to is the last graph here. So that's September, October, November, December, January, and we will share February data with you at the end of this month. But here's where I really want you to look at this closely. I know it's tiny, tiny print, but I wanted to put it on one page so that you can see the growth. Because I'm proud to report that every single grade level from the beginning of the year to where we are now has grown. In other words, we have reduced the number of students who are in that red and yellow column, and we have increased the number of students that are in the green. Some of the grade levels have done it by several percentage points, some by only 2 percentage points. So as you go across the bottom, you can see kindergarten, and so you can see the growth in green, right? We went from about even I struggle to see this from here, 35 to 42%, right? And that's what you want to track. So are those green bars getting bigger for every grade level? And again, I'm happy to report that they are. Part of what we've been doing from the district level to support each of the campuses is we hired a few months ago our education data analyst. So she's working particularly with one campus to get it right, and then we will go across the district with this. What's blacked out in that black bar are student names, but then you can see for each column, there's an October, November, December, January, so forth and so on. What we want to see is a trend so that every student has that trend line that continues to go up. So this is a snapshot of students at Putnam Elementary. Putnam, as you all heard, is really driving this work around data and their PLCs. And so they asked Joanne, can you help us graph this so that we can track it on one sheet? iStation does it for us, but it's not as easy to read. So she was able to create this using Google Drive. And you can see that every single student is trending up with this little subset. So within the next couple of months as she perfects this, we will be able to track students on one page by campus, by teacher, or intervention group or whatnot. And then of course the campus is going even deeper, right? Student by student, teacher by teacher, and then intervention by intervention. So part of the trends, I began to talk about some of this. Our elementary trend, our level 1 students, our level 1 students are increasing, their growth is increasing, but we need to work on level 4 and 5. And so that goes back to this, right? So we're reducing the number of level 1 students. In other words, they're growing. But our 4 and 5, which is the deepest green, which are students who are already on grade level or above, their rate of progress is not as high. So what that means is, yes, we're focusing on closing gaps with students who are struggling, but what are we doing with students who are already there? So that continues to be a conversation for us. The next one, again, overall improvement is slight, but it's an upward trend. It's about 2 percentage points on average, but some grade levels are doing better than others. And then the rate of improvement shows growth within all grade levels in the elementary. Again, our slowest growth, though, is level 4 and 5. So as we jump to the middle schools, our middle schools are still growing their students. AJB, if we look at the levels, level 1, 3, 4, and 5, they have a moderate rate of improvement. What iStation looks for is there low rate, moderate rate, or high rate? And so we want to be moderate or higher. Moderate means that they're expected to grow at that rate. High rate is that they're above the expected line. So the only group was, again, group 2, who was not growing at that moderate rate. 6th grade continues to be a struggle with student engagement and making sure that we're using iStation and staying on task. You all remember the data from earlier, right? That big drop from 3rd to 6th grade, so that continues to be on our radar. And then 7th grade, this is where we saw moderate to high rates of improvement. So our 7th grade teachers are doing some excellent work at AJB. At Barnes, all grade levels are growing with moderate rates of improvement. So across the board, they're doing really well for every level. And then two of the things that we need to continue to do is the campuses are focusing again on intervention to close those gaps. You all heard about the reading intervention that's happening at Rodriguez. All of this is tied to what are we doing to ensure that all students are reading on grade level. And then finally, that enrichment planning is what's needed. So again, we're closing the gaps with our students who are struggling the most, but we need to continue to serve students on the high end. And that is what we will continue to do. So we included a couple of pictures for some celebrations. The first one that you see are some students with their goals. If we were to go to any campus and we were to ask students about their goals, I think most students could talk to us about iStation goals. What you see in the middle is, it's a trifold, you can't see it open, but within there, iStation functions in what they call cycles. So every cycle is a teaching opportunity. And so what the campuses have at the elementary is, if I'm in cycle 1, and I believe there's about 20 or whatnot, what are the things that I need to do to make sure that I'm intervening at that level, and that it's appropriate for that level? If I'm in cycle 15, what am I doing to make sure that I'm intervening for students who are that high? And so every group has a different intervention based on where they are in the cycle. And then the last chart again, is just the goal. So as you walk through our campuses, you should see this either in a data room, in the classroom, in the student binder, or in the hallway. Because every class and every grade level and every campus is tasked with tracking the rate of improvement on iStation. And so some of our next steps. So we had, it was a next step because when I prepared this, it hadn't been done, but we contracted with iStation to come down and provide us some data reports and some training so we could further understand it. So that happened on the 7th of February. We continue to monitor the students. Again, this is student by student. It's not okay just to say, as a campus, are they closing the gap? We have to go down to the teacher and the student level. And then we have to make sure that we're increasing the minutes of students on iStation. So iStation does a couple things for us. One, it allows us to track the growth by giving this what's called ISIP test every month, but then it has interventions. So we have to make sure that our students are using the interventions too if we want to see that increased growth. And I think the last part is what's extremely important. For every week, we want to see 90 minutes for students who are 3 or more reading levels behind. We want to see at least students on iStation for 60 minutes if they're 1 to 2 levels behind, or 30 minutes if they're 1 reading level behind or on level. So the celebration for tonight really is around this chart here, is that while we're not saying that we're going to hit the target with every single subject, what we can say with full confidence is that every single grade level is closing that gap.
Discussion in the slide when we talked about, there was some with AJB and.
Oh, yep.
I noticed it was kind of broken down there for AJB, but not Barnes. And what about 8th grade?
Sure. So the reason we pointed out 6th and 7th grade is because 6th graders were receiving the least movement, 7th graders receiving the most movement. So that's why we pointed those out. And at Barnes, the reason we didn't break it out is because every grade level, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is moving at that moderate rate of improvement.
Does that include English and Spanish?
So at the secondary, I believe it is only Spanish. At the elementary, it is English and Spanish. What did I say? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for that.
So there's the AGB when it says the levels 1, 3, and 4. What about 2?
Yep. So level 2 is not moving at that moderate rate. It is moving at a low rate.
Okay. What are we looking for?
I'm going to turn to. So what I can say is this is what needs to happen. It's the 90-minute, 60-minute, and 30-minute block. So part of, I think, I'm going to go back to my teaching days. I used to teach 6th grade ELA, right? And so you're tasked with the reading and the writing. And so the only way that you're going to be able to implement iStation fidelity with this amount of time is if you're working through some sort of station rotation or whatnot. It's a very similar model to the elementary, where you have some small groups, and that has been a struggle. I think if you walk into some of our classrooms, you see a lot of whole group teaching, and so the support needs to be, not that whole group teaching shouldn't happen, but it happens in pockets so you can get that one-on-one individual time. So it's making sure that our teachers understand that while classroom management is tougher when you have rotations going through, what you're really doing is engaging the student one-on-one directly, and that is where we're going to see the most growth. And so that is why when you hear Rodriguez saying we have to make sure that we have our guided reading time, it has to look similar in middle school. And so the push is, what are we doing so that every grade level, especially ones that are not growing on that moderate or high rate, that they are closing those gaps. So it's one-on-one conversations with the teachers. Right now, as we transition to STAR, they have to be able to read, right? They have to be able to read the test, whether it's STAR reading, math, science, or social studies for the 8th grade. And so it's, what are we doing to ensure that every single student is not stagnant? What are we doing to ensure that every single student receives one-on-one time with the teacher? What are we doing to ensure that there's an intervention plan? And we will share those intervention plans with you all for both Barnes and AJB.
And that's campus leadership and administration.
Correct. So we will share with you our intervention plans for the campuses, and it includes reading as well.
Mike,
Yes.
the chart with the data analysis developed for Palma,
Yes, sir.
yes, is that just being done at Palma? None of the other campuses are tracking the data?
So it started with Butland. They were the first campus to say we want it on one page. iStation does this, but they do it student by student. They wanted it on one page. So Joanne and Jeffrey started working on this for them, and they're kind of the pilot campus. Well, it seems really easy, right, just to graph a line. The coding that has to go behind the Excel spreadsheet takes a long time, and so what we want to make sure is that between Joanne and Jeffrey that they can do it well, and that when we add a new data set, it continues to track correctly, and then we can replicate it for everybody else. There really is lines of code. Nice. Instead of hours of coding. Awesome.
Moving on to our next information item, and that is an update regarding our curriculum management.
Bill, is the PowerPoint also, it should have been a PowerPoint. It wasn't on there. Okay. Let me see where the copy is.
You want us to come back to you?
Alright, I apologize for that. I'll go through the plan, and then once we hit the PowerPoint, instead of going through 32 pages, it is like a five-point presentation that makes it very clear. Can you pull up the plan there, please? So at the beginning of the year, as we were, again, having our conversation around our strategic initiatives, we knew that we had to move instruction. And one of the instructional initiatives that you all created for us was that we had a guaranteed and viable curriculum for all students. So one of the ways that we can do that is to ensure that we have a curriculum management plan. And so our Director of Secondary Ed, Ms. Laura Cooper, has really led the way in creating this plan. It has been vetted with teachers. It has been vetted with principals at one of our instructional leadership team meetings in the fall. It was tweaked, I believe, last month. She shared a draft with you all, and so this was to hit some of those highlights. Okay. So while Bill pulls that up, there's three main components that we really have to ensure that our curriculum management plan includes. And so the very first one is, what are we going to teach, right? What's the top curriculum? And so we know that the state gives us our TEKS, but those are really broad, right? So then we have to decide as a district, what is important to us and what do our students need? So we go through a process of identifying essential standards. That's why the PLC is extremely important, because as teachers, they have to be able to say, I know what the state tells me, right? There's all these TEKS that we have to cover. What's most important? Thank you, Bill. All right. So in our curriculum, we have to decide what is most important. So what are we going to do to create very clear guidelines and documents to make sure that every single teacher, whether we're in pre-K or we're in high school, we have access to these documents. so that we ensure that we're teaching the TEKS. So you'll see on the bottom right, it says the foundation curriculum. We start with what's called a year at a glance. So that's going to allow teachers to see their entire year laid out. Then we've got what we call a scope and sequence. So a little bit more detail. Here's how long you're going to take to teach these certain TEKS or these certain units. We adopt and we purchase, we don't adopt, I'm sorry, we purchase what's called TEKS Resource System. Most districts, about half the districts across the state, use that as their curriculum management framework. It has what's called an instructional focus document. In that IFD, it pretty much expands on the TEKS and it says, here are some things you should consider. Here's some vocabulary you should consider. Here's some misconceptions, right? Students may miss this idea because they're thinking X or they're thinking Y. There's what they call TEKS verification documents. In other words, are you aligned with what the state intended, right, the TEKS to say or to do? And then it provides clarity. So yes, here are the TEKS, but this is really what you need to hone in on for this lesson or for this particular standard. So we have that for all our foundational curriculum, so all our core curriculum. On the other side, you'll see our enriched or local or course electives or core electives. We don't have those documents as tightly outlined as we do our core curriculum. And so you'll see that we still provide a scope and sequence, we still provide a year at a glance, and then we provide a brief IFD. So our elective teachers do have a little bit more work to do, but what we need to guarantee is that every core subject area has a lot more specificity. So that is around our curriculum, and that's what is written, and then we talk about what needs to be taught. So in what needs to be taught, this is when we think about what guides us, right? How do we know what to teach? What are the things that we want every single student in Seguin ISD doing and learning and then leading with? And so we have to ensure that it's student-centered, right? So the students need to be engaged, the students need to be learning, the students need to be doing something that's hands-on that can go beyond just memorizing. What are our quality controls? So how do we know that we can check for certain things? So our growth model that's tied to T-tests, that is our teacher appraisal system and evaluation system. It is a growth system. So while you are being evaluated at the end of the year, the idea is that every teacher grows regardless. So that's one of the ways that we do it. We also do it through the CAR process. So that's when we use our rigor and relevance frameworks. In the CAR process, we consult with a consultant from ICOB. She's here 4 times a year working with principals and working with department leads at the secondary to make sure that we're always coaching. So she perfects our coaching model. And then we have for the secondary what Ms. Cooper is calling an innovation configuration map. So she's looking for certain things. So we should always see certain documents, and that is we should always see work samples. So as a PLC, what student work are you pulling to make sure that you have solid work samples? As a PLC, what student rubrics are you using to make sure that you have high quality lessons? And then we talk a little bit about lesson design, and then ultimately what leads to what we call the 5 habits of excellent or effective instruction. And so lesson design is we have district templates. So the elementary has a lesson plan template that we ask them to follow. The middle schools have one that's very similar to the high school, and the high school has another. And so that's the very beginning. But then it's about what are we doing, as you can see in that POC. And it's not just about what do you do once, but what do you do continuously to always improve. And then ultimately, our 5 habits of effective instruction. So TEA has created what they call an effective schools framework. And they're saying that if you do these 5 things really well, you should have high-performing campuses. And so from there, we say, what are the 5 things that TEA says that we should do? And it's not just TEA, it's a lot of research that they've done. And then what does it look like in Seguin? And that's what that 5 habits of effective instruction is. So we look for what we call instructional routines. So what are the things that teachers should be doing in the classroom on a consistent basis to make sure that everyone is learning? What do we do to make sure that everyone has management routines? So classroom management, right? If our classroom is chaos, very little students are learning, right? But when we have a well-managed classroom with strategies to how that explain to teachers or help teachers or support teachers on how to deliver lessons, we can have better instruction. And then we also use, as you all are familiar, our ICOE rubrics, right? So how do we, every single lesson, have high levels of rigor and high levels of relevance, but also student engagement. And then we have the scaffold and support. We know that all our students can't access that at high level. So what do we do as a teacher to help them access that information? And then finally, you have to be able to pace it. So if you're in middle school, again, I'm going to go back to my 6th grade years as a teacher. I'm not going to ask a middle school student to sit quietly for 45 minutes, right? So every 5 to 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, what am I doing to vary the instruction? So that is what was written, then what was taught, and then what was tested. Right? So what do? So we know what TA asks us to do, we know what the district asks us to do, we know how to teach it, and now how does it test it? So it forms a triangle. And so some of the guiding principles is there has to be alignment. So we like to start with our common formative assessments or our curriculum benchmark assessment so that we know, and there's no surprise to teachers, if there's going to be a district assessment, there's a blueprint that tells us what's going to be on it. You won't have the specific question in front of you, but you'll know what it's going to be, what's going to be on the test. We have our data that is then disaggregated. You heard a lot of the PLC conversations. So what data are they using? They're using the assessment data that either we created or the teachers together created. And then we have rubrics or exemplars. So what does high quality work look like? There's protocols that we use in the PLCs that tell us what high quality work can look like. It guides us through those conversations because I don't know, I think it was Ms. Gonzalez or Ms. Blanco who said that there's a lot of vulnerability in this, right? As a teacher, you can't always say I have all the answers. Same thing as an administrator, so what are we doing to learn through this process? And then finally, it has to be collaborative. The design process has to be collaborative, and we're working to do that a little bit better. Then we look at how do we control for it. So we have a district assessment design review. We had to tweak that a couple of times throughout the year, and we will continue to get better. One of the products that we will have at the end of this year is a full assessment manual. Everything from what is it that we believe in, how do we test, how often do we test, when do we test, and then a bank of questions that we may use to test. And then finally, our process for data analysis and data-informed intervention. So goal setting. Many of you have heard about the work that our education data analyst has done to set goals with students, to track student learning. It's been implemented definitely at the middle schools, and then little by little at the elementaries. We prioritize our lowest performing campuses first. Every elementary, I can say, is tracking student data. It just looks a little bit different. There are teacher action plans. So after every assessment, after every major assessment, teachers have to come up with a teacher action plan. And then, of course, it's about monitoring, right? And so what does the campus admin team monitor? How does district monitor? And then we look at are the interventions being effective. So the 32-page document is pretty much these three things, right? So what does the state tell us we have to do? What do we do to make sure teachers are teaching it effectively and efficiently? And then how do we test it? So we believe that if we have these three areas captured really well, and everyone across the district understands it, that we will have access for every student at high levels, which is our goal. So I've shared a lot. So I'm going to just kind of go back. Written curriculum, right? It's what TA tells us. What questions from there do you all have? It's Teach Resource System is our driving force, and that it doesn't include lessons, but it tells us what we have to teach. It doesn't tell you how we have to teach it, though. The lesson planning happens in the PLC. Yes, ma'am.
They don't share.
Yes, there are different opportunities that Ms. Jaramillo and the coaches or instructional specialists have created for them. So they're special by grade level or by bilingual education. So there are opportunities throughout the district. not less than plans, no more.
The scope of sequence calendar is that for the district-wide, so if hot lawn is learning fractions 1 week, minor doing the same thing.
That is the idea, yes, ma'am.
How much flexibility is there if there's
Yep. So
nothing seems to be understood?
we usually say if you're behind a week or two, it's probably okay, but more than that, it's probably not. And the idea that we say that is because what we'll do is at the beginning, over the summer, each content coordinator will sit with our calendar. And if it includes a testing date, if it includes a holiday, if it includes a PD day, all that is taken into account. It also includes some flexibility within the calendar. So before the end of every grading period, there's a couple of days there. Before major tests, there's a couple of days of flexibility. So I think kind of like if you're between 1 to 2 weeks, you're still okay. Anything beyond that is you run the risk of not teaching everything and still leaving time to prepare for the first job. Yeah, I think we need to get better at that, and I think that's part of the work that happens over the summer. But that is the conversations that we have either during a check-in or with the directors or with the specialists.
And I think as well that there's such a solid system in place with the elementaries that there's ongoing dialogue between the instructional coaches and the director of elementary, and the coaches work very closely with teachers. So that is a conversation that happens very well at the elementary. So if there are issues, just like you shared, the coaches together collaboratively talk through that with the team here. Absolutely, ongoing.
And we may not be able to change the pacing right there and then, but it's information leading up to the next school year. Either to the top curriculum or the assessed curriculum. It is a lot. We can always continue to have these conversations because at the end of the day, we have to understand our curriculum, our teachers, and that's why those meetings that Dr. Gutierrez is talking about are extremely important. So we have to be in constant communication and collaboration.
And there has to be a high level of monitoring at this level, the principal level, because this looks great on paper. It's beautiful. It's well written, but it's meaningless if we're not ensuring that we're, one, providing the support and the resources, but most importantly, monitoring that the work is happening.
I just want to say thank you for letting us know the process. Continue to check in every day at Barbara. It's really helpful with you doing that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for joining.
It may be helpful next time you address this to give us a glance at one of the acts of the sequence or
I'll include one of each in the next update.
And next up we have a bond project update from the list.
President Jimenez, Dr. Gutierrez, Board, thank you for letting us present tonight on our bond update. It changes quickly, so I try to include pictures even from today on our projects. We put the presentation together off our updates from a week or so ago, but things have been moving so fast. I want to talk to you about, of course, the 3 construction projects and also playgrounds as well. So Matador Stadium, we're in the construction phase. We're at about 24% complete. There's a lot of work that goes on underground that has come up to this point. There are a lot of toilets that are going to be functioning in this place, and so there's a lot of pipes and water and such underground for that. You can see subgrade, preparation, and field configuration, underground utilities, drainage framework. The track is actually already there, it's curing and waiting. You see the goalposts are up, some poles, some other things are up. Today, the work picture on the left is from today. The structure that's going to support the press box started going up today, and we had to rerouting some traffic over the high school for a couple of months just for safety reasons, because because that press box goes pretty close to the curb with the increased size of the stadium. You can also see there's the visitors ticket booth that's there, and this is from a couple of weeks ago on the left, and then today you can see it's got the cover already up on the ticket box. And so the masonry work continues. They're drilling holes for the masonry wall that's going to go along Cedar Street, and also the foundations for the home side ticket, and a lot more concrete work as you start happening under the stadium in those places before they start putting up a lot of supports in the stands. So it's moving pretty fast. If you're curious, you're going to see that it's been building downward for a while. Now it's about to go vertical. We are on track, and again, our completion date, the field will be finished by the summer, maybe a little bit earlier, and then that'll get turned over to the district so that again, they can have access to the field this summer when needed, and then the rest is set for completion in mid-August. We are on time and on the right pace. HAB, we finished our survey and pre-design. We are in the design, what's called the design and bid phase. We have we've had departmental meetings, our most recent meetings where we met with child nutrition in my department and the facilities department to talk about plumbing and electrical and those kind of things that are going on with the plan. And as we transition the school about this time next year, as we bid it out and have a contractor on board, we start our phasing at this time next year. Again, we have a well thought out design that we've gone through and talked to departments with, looked at the big picture details. We'll have more discussions later to get down to the nitty-gritty details in a lot of the departments, but we do have our design plan. We do have some renderings. These are just draft renderings. These have not been finalized, but it shows kind of what the front entrance would look like. The front entry right now, that corner you see right there, it's actually the corner of the cafeteria right next to the gym, where there's a big loading dock right now. That's going to end up being part of the front entry of the school along the front right there. So, big transformation. You see the bottom, the picture on the bottom is the back of the school. You see the large building on the left, that's the newest gym right there. I'm sorry, the cafeteria right there, and then there's be a entry point. That'll be a new cafeteria that's built at the beginning, and then an entry point for bus drop off and a covered walkway into the cafeteria. There's a couple of renderings of what the library entrance right now. The library entrance is actually going to be the old locker mall. That's going to be turned into a library. It will be built in there. We're thinking about putting a roof on it. We haven't decided. Just kidding. There'll be a roof. So we have a roof on our library, and then the view on the right is from the library looking back towards looking down the school back towards the science building, which is all going to be, what's now the science building is looking that direction. So these are some renderings that we just wanted to make the show and just show that we're working on as we make it through the design phase. We do have a board workshop twice on March 24th to have the architects walk through the HAB plans and the phasing and etc. So you can get a pretty good idea of what's going to happen, chance to ask questions, and just see how that work is progressing. So we'll spend some time with the architects that night and talking about other facility items as well. Our ongoing departmental reviews, we'll go back to the staff in March, early April, and talk more to the different departments about things going on, the design, and get a little bit more input. Again, we're on pace to bid this out probably this November to December time frame, and start getting bids for a contractor at that point. We started with Jefferson this week and toured the campus with Ms. White. Again, we're in the survey and pre-design phase. We'll start the design phase. This is not a huge renovation, but I mean, it is about short shy of $4 million, looking at the south and east wings, and we've had several architects and engineers have been walking the campus and learning about how things are situated. And it was a campus that, of course, was built without air conditioning, and there were things crammed above that ceiling like you wouldn't believe. There's so much, not much space. And so looking at how those pieces work, looking at air conditioning, looking at how we're going to close one of those breezeways. So that piece has started, and we're starting our design phase here this month. Again, that'll be completed in November simultaneously with AJB, so we can bid both projects at the same time and give people a chance to bid on one, the other, or both at the same time. Playgrounds. Playgrounds are going fast. So first I'll show you a picture of Rodriguez. The main play structure is nearly complete. Also some of the sidewalks, still have some sidewalk work to do over Rodriguez. Remember, we're connecting our buildings to our playgrounds, some extra wide sidewalks. I'll show you a picture of that. Those sidewalks are needed even if we weren't doing playgrounds, just because of the amount of recess time that we do now. As kids are out there, and it's just kind of dirtying up our buildings. There's a lot of feet going through a lot of dirt, so having these wide walkways back into the buildings helps kind of reduce some of that dirt we're carrying back into the buildings with walkways. I'll show you a picture. First picture right here, you can see a nice picture from Rodriguez. Structure is going up. Still some work to do. That is not the pour and play surface. That is still dirt. So still have some work to do, but I thought that was a pretty nice picture. I think we posted this one today. The top, you will see McQueenie. We had some opportunities with weather and just the way the crews that he had available, so we bumped McQueenie up because it was a little bit different install. Remember, we're installing on the concrete pad that is already there, and it's secured down, so in the future, if we wanted to, we could unsecure it and take it and move it to another location in the future. So that one had a little bit different install. Then you can see the extra wide sidewalk that's going out to the playscape. There's also some swings going in there, and you can kind of see a little closer up on the upper right. On the bottom left, is a picture of Pot Lawn. You can see the extra wide sidewalk that's being framed out there, and on the right is Jefferson. We have the fencing, construction fencing up, just kind of outlining the location. So they're moving fast. Again, we're still on pace to finish this summer, but the work's going pretty good right now. And moving right along. I know Pete's on. He's not here today. He was kind of disappointed because I feel excited about it. Pete takes it to another level of excitement. So I'm here to answer any questions or you might have. No, the company we purchased from was all there, and that they're doing, yes. Yes. Start about this time next year. Well, they'll start laying groundwork, setting up the trailers, fencing. It depends on what they want to do first. We may move some classrooms at midterm out into some portable. We're moving 3 portable buildings over there from the high school right now. We're re-roofing, doing some floors, painting, gutters. We're fixing them up really nice before we move them over there. We're going to move them over there right now, even though they're not going to go into use immediately, but we're moving them over there, and that gives us plenty of time to hook up utilities and etc. as we get closer. So it could be by Christmas next year we could relocate some folks, just depending on exactly when they want to start on certain rooms.
And the last other information items is a discussion on the potential impact of area lakefront property value decline. Okay, district funding.
Vice President Jimenez, Dr. Gutierrez, members of the board, appreciate the opportunity to present a little bit of information regarding the potential impact of area lakefront property value declines on district funding. And of course, as we know, this was a very hot topic, controversial topic previously. And one of the things that we've come to really realize over the last few months is the beneficial impact of HB 3, the House Bill 3, on school funding when it comes to fluctuations in local property values. So regardless of whether the values go up or down, the state has changed the formulas and is putting forth virtually dollar for dollar to get to a certain target revenue per student for any given school district. And so what I did, as a result of the information that came out of that study that was commissioned by the Guadalupe Appraisal District, they determined that about it could be as much as, on average, 28% decline in property values along the area lakes. Now that was restricted to the lakefront properties. So then the question is, how would that impact the district's overall property values district-wide, right? And we could speculate on that. Now, could that 28% decline, if we were to see that full value of 28% decline, could that be absorbed and offset district-wide with other properties in their values increasing? There's a real possibility of that because here locally we've historically seen somewhere between 2 and 6% growth on an annual basis. So the overall value may be able to absorb that, maybe. But then again, maybe not, because there could be some bleed off and some decline in properties going beyond just what's lakefront. So in order to try to analyze what would be the impact to Seguin ISD, I ran the funding models that are available to us to determine what the combination of tax effort and state funding would be under 4 different scenarios, and I applied it to our current year. So in other words, I took this year's values, which we know, and ran the model, which I do every 6 weeks anyway on the grading cycle. So I know exactly what we anticipate at this point in time for the district's revenue to be. We know exactly how much we expect it to be in terms of tax collections based on the current property valuations. And we also know how much we expect to receive in terms of state funding, the 2 primary components that make up the revenue that the district receives for general operating fund purposes. So I ran that as a baseline. And then I ran using the same model, the same tool, with an overall 5% decline in value. And it just was an arbitrary number. Could you argue that there would be an overall decline of 5% in property values across the district if we experienced a 28% decline in those lakefront properties? Would it equal to a 5% overall decline? So we did that analysis. And then I took it to the 10% decline in value across the entire district, 10% decline in all values. And then even to almost go to hyperbole example, we went to 30%, a full 30% decline, not just on lakefront properties, but on district-wide, every single property in the district, if we were to experience a 30% decline. And in every single case, without exception, the state was offsetting dollar for dollar what we were losing in terms of local tax effort. In fact, as we moved further and further into the decline, what I noticed was the overall funding was actually increasing ever so slightly. So, for example, and I didn't detail all of this in the verbiage, but just to give you an example, we're looking at about $61.7 million in terms of overall revenue combined between the 2 major sources. If we have a 5% decline, we'll actually potentially experience an additional $35,000 of revenue that we otherwise wouldn't have. Now, is that to say it's good if we have decline? No, it's not, and I'll explain why in a moment. But from the M&O side, from the general operating side, which is the primary component of district operations, it would not be impacted as a result of valuation decline, and it is directly a result of the legislative adjustments to state funding. Okay, so converse, and so carrying that on through, if we look at the 10% valuation decline, we were up to $67,000 of additional revenue above and beyond what we have now. That's with a 10% overall decline, and at 30%, we were just under $100,000 of additional revenue that we wouldn't experience under the current valuations. So obviously, it's not likely that we would experience even a 10% decline district-wide, but could we possibly see the 5% decline? It is possible. And so where that would potentially have an impact on Seguin ISD is when we get away from the general operating fund and look at the INS fund and the complete tax effort that is needed to maintain our obligations for the bonds we currently owe, as well as any future bonds. So what I want to explain is, in that case, the state does not come in and offset anything. Right now, the state gives a very minimal amount of effort to assist the district's funding or give any funding from the state for debt service payments, about $230,000, where we need about $11 million. So we're not getting any help from the state there. It's all based on local tax effort. But what I'll also say with regard to that is I do feel like it's likely that the district, even to experience a 5% decline overall, which is something we'll know a little bit more as we get into about April 25th, we'll get our preliminary values. So we'll have a good idea where values will land this year. It's not likely that valuations are going to be much different than would otherwise be, because the valuation snapshot is the 1st of January. And so any impact of late dewatering, valuation decline is likely not going to happen until, if it happens at all, obviously that's going to be if there's any dewatering. But if it happens at all, it would be potentially by next January, which would impact the 21-22 school year. So where we are right now in the budgetary process, the snapshot's already been taken, and like I said, we'll know those values, preliminary values, in April of this year. That being said, if we did have a 5% decline this year, then for next year, I do feel like we have sufficient fund balance, and our models have been sufficiently conservative. We've been modeling at 0% growth for future projects and future bond funding requests. So I think it's very likely that we would be able to avoid a situation where there would be a need to look at increasing INS tax rates in order to generate the local effort necessary to support the debt that we currently have. But again, that information will be much more clear as we get into later months of this year. So that's the analysis. Be happy to answer any questions from anyone else. Thank you.
Before we go to the vote, I'd like to amend the agenda and we can move forward to item 8A. The number of persons this year. This would be an action item. So, Tony, I'm sorry to bounce that on you. But this will be a discussion of possible actions to approve the waiver of certain financial agreements between the Seguin sports boosters and Seguin administrators.
So over the years, Seguin ISD has enjoyed a good relationship with Seguin sports boosters. They do a ton that a lot of it even goes unnoticed, and there is a financial impact. It's not just donations that the boosters makes to the district, but there are financial burdens that the booster clubs bear in terms of just managing certain aspects of various events throughout the year for multiple sports and even events that aren't sports. So, and of course, over the years, there have been some agreements. I won't say that all of them have been well documented, but some of them have. And the ones that have usually are more of a material nature. And so specifically, there was an agreement at one point in time where the boosters would assist the district by paying $10,000 a year in an effort to pay for the track that was installed several years back. Well, then there came a point in time when there was a need for the boosters to bring in their own concession stand. And so there was going to be a reprieve on that $10,000 contribution per year so that they could operate, maintain, and do what was necessary with that concession stand. Well, then now obviously we no longer have the track, so there's some complexities there as to how we hold them accountable for something that doesn't even exist anymore. But then more importantly, in 2016, there was an agreement that the booster clubs signed, which was a commitment to assist the district in order to procure the Qualified Zone Academy bonds of $10 million. And with that agreement, what the boosters essentially agreed was that they would contribute, not necessarily in donations, but in donations and services and things that are qualified, $100,000 per year, and that's for 10 years, so that it equates to a total of 10% of the total valuation. That's $1 million contribution over the course of time. And they've done a good job for 2016, 17, and 18 of giving us a detailed spreadsheet that identifies how they are calculating that they're contributing either in dollars or in services that $100,000. They've done that for 3 years now. And they're currently working on that for the 2019 year. We'll have to continue doing that every single year until 2026 in order to reach that $1 million obligation of contribution. But obviously that negates the need for any additional $10,000 contribution associated with a track that no longer exists or otherwise, because this $100,000 a year contribution is more than enough to cover that. And so what we're asking is that we just have permission to wipe the slate clean, except for the arrangement that's in place with QZAB. Obviously, that's more of a legal nature. There's binding requirements there that we can't ask you to ignore. But everything else, we would ask.
Madam President, I move to approve the waiver of certain financial agreement assistance to the board, Kingsbury Club and Seguin.
Do I have a second? Mr. Dees? Any further discussion? Not all in favor, raise your right hand. Those same sign. So carry 6 and 1 abstention. Thank you. Thank you for boosters for all you do. Sorry to make you wait so long. For the rest of us, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we'll be heading straight into closed. It is now 8:47. We'll start our closed session at 8:57. Okay, guys? And it is 10:42. And we will be taking no action. Moving on to consent agenda items. We have for approval, the approval of all of our board minutes, the special meetings, and our meetings from 2021, the approval of tax collection report, approval of the budget amendments, financial statements for 2020, approval of donation proceedings for 2020, consideration of the United States Education Amendment, Region 13, Regional Day School Program for the yes, approval of the 2019-20 full day prepaid waiver application, approval for a professional development waiver, and public information act request for December 2019 to January 2020. Does anybody want to pull in these items for discussion? If not, do I hear a motion? Approval, Mr. Commodore, do I hear a second? Mr. Moreno? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7. All right, moving into the rest of our action items, we're going to start off with the approval, possible approval of the school calendar for the 2020-21 school
turn this microphone on so the audience can hear me well. What you have, good evening again, Trustees, Dr. Gutierrez. In your board packet, you do have an exhibit, which is the proposed school calendar for the 2020-2021 school year. As is tradition, as we've done for many years, the Superintendent's Teacher Communication Council, which is comprised of a representative from each campus, 3 representatives from the high school, which is the number of employees in the high school. Started this process, actually started meeting back in September. Jack Lee chaired that committee for many years. This year, Megan Holmes from Western Middle School volunteered to serve as chair. And back in the, I want to say probably the October meeting, we talked about calendar a little bit, but really got hot and heavy into it at our November meeting. And the calendar discussion continued through January, March, January. So the calendar you have before you, again, was essentially put together by the TCC reps. And their responsibility was to take information shared during the meetings back to their respective campuses, talk and discuss, share the information with their colleagues, and then bring the information back to their next monthly meeting. So we went through several incarnations of the calendar. As you'll notice, this calendar is very similar to the calendar that we're currently in right now. For the most part, our teachers were happy with it. We did make some slight modifications. I can go through those and show those to you if you'd like. I can talk about this for a while, or I don't have to go into detail. But, again, it's I'll leave it up to you. That's correct. In our current calendar, last fall we had that Monday off after Fair Day, and the year before that we had the Thursday prior to the Friday Fair Day off. So we've changed it a little bit. Last year we changed it to that Monday with the great idea that at the elementary level teachers could have parent conferences on that Monday to schedule it. The idea was great, but in practice it really didn't translate to success. Number one, that Monday is Columbus Day, so many parents had that day off. The end result was that our teachers felt they didn't have a lot of parents committing to come in on that day just to do it as a conference. So we kind of went back and discussed that, and everybody was happy with the campuses deciding on setting their own conference times and dates. So that can be worked out in October ideally, but again, that would be a campus.
I appreciate all the work that TCC has done, and I have had a number of parents who would like to have the opportunity for input as well. So I hope that the TCC will consider that next year. I think they were looking at perhaps those who could narrow down to 2 options and then say if the students on that one. I don't think we want to do. I'm not sure what that would be by parents involvement. Perhaps just an opportunity for them to make contact.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments on the student school calendar? Any motion for approval? Mr. Amador, second from Mr. Piata. All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. And our last action item is to consider appointing an additional member of the board of trustees to the construction committee. I think Mr. Alejandro Piata is interested in serving on that committee along with Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Amador. So you're willing to accept this appointment? Do I hear a motion for approval? Mr. Amador, do I hear a second? Ms. Hunter? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. And that is the end of our meeting. There are any comments or requests?
I have one request. So in the consent agenda, the contract for the school for the deaf is pretty standard. So I just have to put out, but sometimes maybe if we have some doesn't have to be immediate, but just at some point. Yeah.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Mr. Amador, Mr. Jenkins, second, Mrs. Vines, all in favor? Raise your right hand. It's 10:49.
Look at the extension, Cindy, on the last.
I'll email you